Good evening. On behalf of all my colleagues here at the Metropolitan, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to this highly topical program devoted to a singular series of events that are unfolding beyond the museum's walls. My name is Alisa LaGamma, and I am curator in charge of the Department of the Arts of Africa, Oceania, and the Americas. And my own research as an art historian focuses on masquerade performance in Central Africa. To mark the centennial celebration of one of our great civic landmarks, Grand Central Terminal, Creative Time and MTA Arts for Transit have joined forces to present a week of performances orchestrated by our featured guest of honor this evening, Chicago-based artist Nick Cave. Heard New York began on Monday and continues through this Sunday twice daily. Some of you may have had the opportunity to experience this remarkable spectacle of 30 life-size horse masquerades that are each activated by a pair of Alvin Ailey dancers. For those of you who have not yet done so, I urge that you catch at least one of the 4 remaining performances scheduled for this weekend. Nick Cave is an artist who seeks to bridge dance and visual art. The elaborate costume ensembles are examples of what he has aptly named soundsuits, creations envisioned as worn sculpture. Between performances, these will be on display as works to be admired in their own right in Grand Central's Vanderbilt Hall. This evening, we have the opportunity to hear from Nick and Creative Time's chief curator, Nato Thompson, to discuss this public art project. And from my end, as an African art specialist, what they are doing for New York City audiences resurrects the role that masquerade traditions in Africa continue to play in serving as a point of intersection for dance, music, and costume. The other important parallel is their role in allowing the community at large, our community, to collectively celebrate an event of shared importance. Excuse me, do you have 11 and 2 o'clock, Saturday and Sunday, are the final 4 performances that I hope that you'll make part of your weekend. In January, I traveled all the way to northern Mozambique to attend a performance of the masquerade that you see on the screen, which took place in a Makonde village, and this dance is known as Mapiko. I'm just going to show you a couple of minutes of this as I explain what's going on. The occasion for performances such as this was traditionally the welcoming home and family reunion of young boys and girls following their completion of a period of instruction. The event that we're seeing here excerpted was a demonstration arranged for my benefit, and it happened late in the afternoon under the shade of a tree once the heat of the day had subsided. And members of the assembled community were directed by a conductor to join in the lyrics to the musical score intoned by a drumming section and the dancing as well at key moments. The action revolved around a professionally trained dancer wearing a bodysuit and carved helmet mask. It's important to note, however, that the performance is a participatory event. Audience members express their appreciation for the masqueraders' virtuosity through gifts of scarves and textiles drawn from their own apparel that the dancer adopts as part of his own costume. This event, thousands of miles away in a small rural hamlet, elicited anticipation and shared appreciation of an exuberant, multidimensional form of expression that those of us who have experienced caves heard New York in the thick of our own dense urban transit center will recognize. It has been said that the DNA of African art is in Nick's Soundsuits. Conceptually, they are clearly kindred spirits with the non-Western traditions that figure so centrally in the Michael C. Rockefeller wing directly above us. A major feature of our galleries devoted to African, Oceanic, and America's traditions are the exquisite sculptural elements from Masquerade ensembles that may be appreciated as stand-alone creations, but were designed to fit the body as an integral part of dance and musical performances. Given that Nick is a contemporary artist whose work draws upon the widest imaginable media and sources of inspiration, ranging from runway fashion to Haitian voodoo flags to non-Western masquerade traditions, the Metropolitan is an ideal venue in which to have this evening's conversation. Nick is so well known to all of you. He is an artist who has run the fashion program at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago for many years, but he is also an artist who exhibits regularly here in our own backyard in New York City, where he's represented at Jack Shaman Gallery, and many of you doubtless saw the 2 recent gallery exhibitions of his work that happened simultaneously in 2011 at Jack Shaman and Mary Boone Galleries. And he also has had an important career retrospective of works to date that has traveled nationally. You're going to be hearing directly from him, so I'm not going to delve further into biography at this point. But I also want to say that I'm really honored and delighted to be joined this evening by the curator who has been working so closely with Nick, Nato Thompson, who has overseen initiatives of this kind for Creative Time since he came to them as a curator for Mass MoCA in 1997. In 2005, he received the Art Journal Award for Distinguished Writing, and his forthcoming book, Seeing Power, Socially Engaged Art in the Age of Cultural Production, is due to be published later this year. So please join me in welcoming Nick Cave and Nato Thompson.
Check. Okay, thanks, Alisa. Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. I think we're going to start with a video of that we did for the New York Times. Is that right? Would you like that?
Sounds great.
I'm Nato Thompson. I can tell you, I'm going to be hearing from you again. That's not the last time we chat. All right, here we go. Let's just start with this. Just real quick, how many of you have been to the actual project? Right on.
Right on.
Awesome. So this was a video we clearly shot in advance. Actually, shot in January when we were test running the horses through. One thing I just want to say about Creative Time is we've been around 40 years. We do art in the public sphere. We're a commissioning organization, so we actually work with the artists to produce projects. And that said, yes, I'm the chief curator, but really the people that do the work are here in the room, which is Jean Cooney, Lila Tamari, and our director of exhibitions who work tirelessly with MTA Arts for Transit, which is Kara Stark. So I just want to give a shout out to them. Thanks. And also to say, you know, it takes a village, but also MTA Arts for Transit for the Centennial did a phenomenal job of working with us to make this thing possible. I just saw a picture of the event today that Ann sent from across the room in the Central Terminal, but it's popular, wouldn't you say? There's a lot of people coming. Grand Central Terminal is extremely trafficked. And in fact, this whole project's given a new meaning to the word heard, I think.
Heard.
Have you heard about heard? Something that I kind of wanted to enter into, and I'm going to get to Nick and we're going to talk for about 35 minutes or so, and then we're going to do this Q&A thing with you guys. I'll tell you the rules on that, which is don't promote your own artwork, and you have to end and you got to end with a question mark. All right, just basic rules of behavior of Q&A. Bear that in mind.
Like you, Nato.
Thanks. Don't promote your artwork. All right, fine. But something that I think is on a lot of our minds, and I want to hear from Nick about this, is the publicness of this, because this is not only a public artwork, but also in conception, the project is about these 30 horses. And when we began, it became more and more clear to me that what was really important to you was that they all stayed together, that this was about a group. 60 dancers, 30 horses together performing. Can you talk about the kind of public nature of this project and also why that's important to you?
Well, it's a project. Hi, everybody, by the way. I'm Nick. But it was it's a project that, I had been thinking about for quite some time. And here it is. But, I sort of tend to sort of, could have been 10 horses. But when I thought about it being sort of a project that I wanted to be out into the world, then 10 wasn't enough. It's sort of, for me, it's about the sort of the impact. The sort of, it's about a sort of a level of delivery, and so and so that's why it's sort of that the volume of that was critical. Horses, it's me sort of, coming back to this sort of place of innocence, this sort of childlike sort of period where, I could take a sock and put it on my hand and do this to it, and I can make a puppet. It's about that sort of, clearly about creating this sort of dream sort of state in this sort of imaginary sort of place in our minds that I tend to think we don't do as much anymore. So it was me sort of taking the opportunity to sort of think about, what can I do to sort of re-jumpstart that, because I think the importance of that in terms of that's what, dreaming is what sort of gives us the sort of initiative to sort of move forward in our lives.
And it bears mentioning that this was initially commissioned by the University of North Texas, and you worked with them to produce the Soundsuits. Maybe you could talk about that initial process.
Yeah, so it was a residency that I had an entire semester at the University of North Texas. So I came in 4 times during the semester, but I worked between the dance department, art department, and the music department. And so basically in my studio, we sort of fabricated one horse, and then we shipped that down with instructions. And so the entire art department, as a matter of fact, the entire city of Denton, Texas, was working on this project. And then the music department created the score for the piece, and then working with the dance department. to sort of produce the choreography of the piece. And so the piece then, when it was completed, we ran it through downtown Dallas, was the initial first heard experience. And then we also did the project at the Nasher Sculpture Garden. So it was, for me, it's like when these opportunities come about that I call sort of these dream projects, for me, it's projects that I cannot financially afford to produce. And then it's projects that I can only imagine doing, but don't necessarily have the means to make them happen. And when they are presented to me and the green light says go forward, then I can really sort of realize these sort of these sort of dreams. I really think they're like dreams to me.
I think they feel like dreams too, in so much as I think all of you experienced it there, but I think there's something, you feel the energy. I mean, I think like, I'm not going to get too West Coast on you, but I really
Get West Coast. What does that mean?
I don't know to get all about psychics or something, like auras. But I feel like you get the room is really charged when the dancers come out and they start getting dressed, and you can really hear the swooshing of the sound suits. Really, first of all, it's strange how silent it gets. As many people are in that room, it really gets quiet, and then it becomes this hypnotic space really fast.
Well, I think that when I flew here last week, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm in Grand Central Station for 14 days, twice a day. I don't think I can do it. And I'm telling you, it's like I feel like I've only been in there one day. It's so transformative. I think it's amazing. The audience becomes just as much participatory within the performance itself. They sort of set the foundation, the space. And it's really probably one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had in my life at this point. I'm not sure. I leave Sunday after the second performance. I'm not really sure what that means in terms of my sort of psychic. But, I'll wake up Monday morning and I'll think it was a dream. That's what's going to happen. I mean, it's it's just so profound, the effect that it has had on me as an artist. And I never go in to any of these performances assuming that I know what the outcome is going to be. So I'm always open to a new experience. I mean, the kids just take me to they just sort of, oh my God. I mean, I know what it's like just not being able to break that line. And they are like hands are like gripped because they cannot get beyond that rope we put up. And so, they're so enthusiastic and so involved and so connected, but then the adults are the same way. It's so magical. And, the room gets silent because it's an event. It's a, somehow the horses on the sawhorse resonate this kind of energy. They sort of demand a certain type of sort of attention. The residue that's on the floor is evidence of something that has happened in the space. So it sort of sets up
Layers of performance.
Right. There is these conditions that are in the space that I think sort of settles the audience, because there is this moment, there is this sort of element that there is something that's about to happen. So I think that's really interesting too.
Just to go to Alisa's early video, I do think about, there is a lot of corollaries, in many respects of this, the circle of people and a performance, but also the charged energy and the kind of ritual qualities of that for a very secular, strange city called New York City. Basically also on juxtaposed between Passover and Easter weekend. But I think there is something profoundly ritualistic about this.
Well, there's an esprit de corps that you create when you communally experience something like this. I mean, I've been running into people who were at the performance that you had Wednesday night, and it becomes this sort of cherished, shared experience that everybody is very much, I don't know, it creates a bond with your fellow audience members. It's part of the dynamic of participating in a performance.
Yeah, and I also noticed too, it's funny because we live in this digital age, and like it only makes public art more fun because I think sometimes now everyone's like, we're having an experience. I mean, that alone is already like, what's happening to me? There's bodies in a room. But we've experienced with this project this kind of blend of like the digital the digital world of like the million photos. I mean, I can't keep track of how many photos have been taken of that thing, but it's such an aggregator of this. I mean, you see it's not only the kids reaching out, but it's the phones reaching out over top.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, it's totally sort of like this entire sort of fencing of this whole entire technology sort of. It's almost like towers that are sort of circling the entire space. But it's interesting for me to think that the performance really starts out as a morning ritual that we all do, and that is get dressed. So it really sort of, just that sort of activity sort of brings us right to that sort of moment of, getting into our own masquerades every day. And then the moment that it is fully transformed into a horse, for some reason that is no longer relevant, the before, so you don't even remember that happening. I mean, the more I look at the performance, I'm realizing there's so many of these sort of moments where you don't know when the transformation sort of took place. And so it continues to sort of unfold, and I think that also sort of reflects in terms of also that at 11 o'clock, after that performance, the audience, that whole group is then sort of pushed out, and then we prepare for the second performance. So just that the sort of rotation and the revolving door sort of aspect of it is a performance in itself.
Let me ask you about the choreography too. So you worked with William Gill, who's here. Hey.
What up, William? Stand up. Boom.
But maybe you could talk about what the thinking that you two had in terms of how that was going to lay out and stuff too.
Well, working, the amazing opportunity of working with Avonlea School and my friend Will was extraordinary. I've known Will for quite some time, and we've worked on a number of projects. My initial thought was, okay, we have 3 hours at Avonlea Studio, and we have 3 hours at Grand Central. I thought that means 5 hours for the most part. And I thought I was interested in working with a different choreographer, but then I thought, I really don't. Then I just thought about everyone has to get used to each other, and then egos. And I just thought I just didn't have time to process that in that short period of time, because that takes time. And so I just thought it's much easier for me to work with someone that I'm familiar with, that also works within the sort of choreography world with students and leads a lot of classes and understands that sort of dynamic. And so we've been talking way before we came to New York about ideas around the project. But, part of, and I wanted him to choreograph part of the piece, but then I also wanted to give a lot of the responsibility to the students. So, part of it was a piece that he choreographed, and then part of it was us sort of putting a number of the dancers in clusters and allowing them to sort of create, which really gave them a lot more ownership to the piece
Of their horse.
of the horse, and also some of the actual choreography of the entire piece. So, things like that really matter to young people, and then we were very sort of, we're cool when we go up in that dance studio. We can relate. We kind of like, and these kids want that kind of interaction. They want someone that is, they want to feel that they are part of a project, but they want you to also feel that you're, the carrier, and really helping and massaging the vision around that. So they're like amazing to work with, and so what we did is that the first thing we did is that we sort of talked about the project, demoed the project, talked about the front end, the back end, the responsibility of all of that. Then we just sort of had them all go to one side of a dance studio, and then we had them move in groups of 10 across to the other side where we were located. And what I was looking for is just, looking for those individuals that are sort of strong, had confidence, fearless, to be the front end of the horse. And then we allowed them to select who they wanted to be as their back end, which therefore it became more friend-based, which was a very smart move, because then what that does is that then they sort of work collectively together and really start to move into horse characteristics, which each day becomes better and better.
Yeah, we see it. We see it over time. I think there's. I almost want to name them at this point. There's like Sleepy, Dopey, Crazy, Stallion.
Okay. But what's interesting is that there is a part of a surrendering process that they have to go through. There is a transition that has to happen in order to fully come at it with conviction. So it's not an easy thing to do. It's how do you sort of allow your body to surrender and to move into this other sort of passage way of thinking and making.
Can you describe the actual suit itself in terms of the construction? And is the front end incredibly heavy? And what is the structure? We can see the second end, the back of the horse. It looks like a very malleable form. But can you just talk about your design of this form?
Yeah, hey Jack, welcome. No, the construction of the suit. There is an apparatus that's designed that sort of fits over the upper part of the chest and then sort of falls back down on the center part of the back, which is a metal sort of structure that's built, and then that is also part of what builds the head out. But it's very thin metal, and then that's covered in a chicken wire, and then we drape in order to cover up the skin for the actual head. It's not very heavy. But the mount, and then the skin is a sort of a cotton blend with a netting that's over top, and then it's synthetic raffia that's then hooked into that. But it's the volume of the raffia that has a bit of weight to it. But it's the body becomes the sort of apparatus, so it's really sort of distributed evenly over the body. So it actually is not as heavy, but it's very hot. There's not a lot of air that's circulating under there, and then there's a sight areas built into the structure.
So the dancer can see how the horse's neck about, right?
And the back end is really sort of very,
like a sack. back.
Yeah, it's sort of just shaped like this. And again, I just sort of draped that in the studio in order to get that form to fall over the back of the body. And then the back end is, really dependent on the front end in terms of direction. And but I've been in every one of those horses. Can you believe it? Every single one. Um, and yeah, for a number of video pieces and things of that sort. So I really understand, what it takes and what the demands are, and but these dancers from Avenali have really now are at a point where they really understand how to get in the piece and how to get out of the piece and how to move in the piece. So it just takes time to sort of get acquainted with something that is somewhat awkward and limp, and to find that sort of center within the garment.
Something that strikes me about this project is the fact that it's 2 times a day, like you were saying, and it lasts a week. But you really get to see it over and over. It's almost hypnotic in that way. Like you said, every day feels kind of the same in a sense, but it's dreamlike state. But how do you think about it? Has that inspired you in other ways? Because it's also interesting in terms of the way it's gotten word of mouth out, in terms of getting excitement around the project, and also the way that the dancers get more and more comfortable in the suits. I guess it's funny because I work in visual arts, public art. I was like, I feel like I'm almost doing performing arts. But there is that kind of feeling about it.
What is your question?
How does it feel like to what does it feel like to have this kind of repetitive performative event?
It's the thing that what does it feel like for me is that it's not so repetitive. And I'm so happy to have that feeling, because to me it says a lot about my work, that it's right on. It's like I can, it's like when I go to a museum to install a show, let's say a traveling show, it's the same feeling. It's like I am so excited about opening a crate. I've seen the piece 10 times, but it's something about, I think it's because it's not in my studio that I make the work and it's out in the world, and it never comes back to my studio. So I think for me, it's sort of exhilarating to sort of to be with it again. I think I'm a messenger first, not an artist. So I think that may play a lot into it as well. And so, and then this may move, let's say, to Miami. Well, her will be different there. So again, the stage, the sort of arena that it's in changes. So it becomes something new. And, it's a new group of dancers. I mean, those are the things that sort of excite me, that, I continue to, if I can sort of allow other people to have a connection or an experience, that's probably the most important thing for me. And to be able to use this as a tool in that way, makes it special.
Some other thought too, as I know that in the future you've talked about that you're not. Is this true? You will not be making sound suits anymore, or you're moving on to a new phase in your artistic career? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm going to just take a break, a 10-year hiatus. And then I'm starting to do more sculptural-based work that I'm so excited about. And it's something that I've been thinking about. And I think what I've been thinking about the most is, what do I carry over? Like, what is the factor that really matters to me, that sort of makes the transition over? And I think what it is the essence. It's like, it doesn't matter what I do, it's the essence that must transfer over into this new sort of body of work. So
So some surprises await us with the future of Nick Cave. I see that. I also know you met Nick Cave last
Oh
night.
my God, we did. I was at the Nick Cave concert, and then after the concert, there was this sort of small after event, and so he's like there, I'm like right here, and we just look at each other like, oh shit, Nick Cave, what? And it was like amazing that it happened. I've been trying to make it happen, and he was so excited.
Has he been to Grand
And
Central?
He hasn't, but they may come tomorrow. But it was so now that the question's answered. There are two of us. I'm the artist that makes artwork. He's the artist that is a musician. So hopefully we'll work together at some point. But
Yeah, it seems like the stars would.
that's what I wrote him today in a note that I sent with him with the pardon me?
She asked who gets top billing.
Me. Of course.
Let's see, you got anything else you want to add to that?
I'm happy to open it up to questions.
Okay, we're gonna.
We should look at a video.
Okay, you want to? Yeah, let's throw a video.
Okay,
in.
so this is
What do you want to see?
let's see. Good start.
Okay.
This is a new video piece that really is a video that really sort of illustrates the sound of the Soundsuit. So it's probably it's a very, very new piece that I'm going to share with everyone. Can we turn it up?
Yeah, I got it up. It takes a little bit to start. If you're not. I think it should play. Hold on. Okay, there's Gestalt. I swear I'm doing what I was told to do. What's that? Here. I think that's the big. Oh, here it is. always push. Oh, hey. Let's hear it for that video. I think we're going to have some questions. Maybe you could talk real quickly about that piece. And also, we're going to play another video that plays along while we have Q&A, correct?
Sure.
You know, so could you talk about the Gestalt work real quick, though?
Well, I mean, it's a new piece, and I'm not really sure what it's about right now. I mean, it's like you have to see the whole thing, really. But you know, what I was interested in is sort of, again, sort of providing, you know, really sort of what's behind Soundsuit, and it really is about the sound that these sort of sculptural sort of forms make. And in this particular piece, it becomes a bit more violent in the piece as it goes on, but it's just really about this interaction between a group of sort of unfamiliar sort of forms or objects or hybrids that have this encounter with this sort of that form that sort of came out at the beginning that was jumping along the back wall. Soon to be coming to theaters.
Yeah. Do we get some questions from the audience out there?
These were all made out of the costumes were buttons, shell buttons, and advocates on a number of the faces, and yeah. And then this piece, as we're chatting, this is all synthetic raffia. So this is a new video as well, so we can just keep going with questions.
The question is, how did you come to decide horses?
This is so intense. Hold on, I'm gonna take. You have to what? So what you're hearing is actually the sound of the raffia itself.
The ocean.
I decided to select horses because I really, again, was thinking about.
That's totally tripping me out. All right.
I was thinking more about this sort of dream state. Again, what could I sort of bring to an audience that could be transformative and get us back to that sort of dream state? And I wanted something very literal in that sort of sense. That it's fabricated, that it's artificial, but it has this sort of power to be realized as true as any other form in that sort of manner. So again, looking at early puppetry to sort of come to that sort of place. Yeah. I wasn't sure that, you know, part of my process, I'm not really sure what the results are going to be, but I'm always open to discovering those things along the way. I really don't I don't sketch in my studio. It's just really through process. So I knew the sort of characteristics of the material and what it could do in terms of its delivery. So I knew the potential there. And I think with Will Gill and the choreography really made the back end really come alive. I mean, when they sort of came together as that cluster, the sort of the evolution of color and the intensity of that and volume really sort of, it was no longer a back end. It was, as you said, this other sort of form that we were sort of confronted with. And when it fell to the floor and then started rolling out, again, it sort of, reshapes itself. It moves to another transformation. So it kept sort of becoming this organic sort of device that kept sort of developing itself.
I was impressed that the front and the back, at the end of the performance, that place as independent entities. How did that? The choreography is quite good.
Yeah, and I think it was what we were interested in is that, how does it become full circle? How do you sort of give yourself that permission to sort of extend yourself as far as you possibly can go and still yet come back to the center, to the core? Yeah, it's one dance. It's split. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, got two things going.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. She's asking if Nick had a personal feeling towards a pet horse or how you felt about that.
No, not exactly. I think I'm kind of scared of horses, actually. Oh, here, do I have favorites of the horses? Oh, yeah. I mean, I think as the performance keeps developing, there's always, one that sort of steps up and sort of takes this sort of grandness sort of position. But I think that it changes every day, though. Yeah. In the earlier video, I am in that. I am the piece against the wall. And I become much more aggressive in the video piece. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy being part of it as well as being on the outside. The thing that's amazing about being here is that, for the first time I can experience my work, which is a big deal for me. Because, you do these exhibitions and, you put these shows up and, everyone's reacting, but you don't have the same, it's not the same for you as the maker. So you sort of, you don't know what that is necessarily.
In the back, up back there. I'm just going to repeat the question. So she's asking, do you actually wear the pieces in advance of the projects? Do you think through how they actually move per project?
I would say I probably wait until it's completed. Most of the time. Yeah, I would say I wait. And, I'm interested in if there's sort of limitations in motion. So how does that then change the body and how I sort of direct that? So I really, in terms of developing the sort of work in the studio, I pretty much stay on track that it's, it's a sculptural piece. I don't want any interference in that process. So I never make for performance. I don't think this is going to be used for performance first. Um, and this piece as well as the other performance pieces, the location becomes a big sketch pad. I have a general idea of what I may want to do, but then it's really developing and creating it on site and uh, really working in that sort of capacity. No, I work as a team in my studio, and the reason why I chose raffia is because of the potential in terms of I knew that in motion had flows. I knew that the volume that it provides, and I was interested in that very subtle sound that is transmitted uh, in the space. And then, the residue that it leaves behind, I'm very interested in that too. To complete one, I would say, let's say if I'm working with 6 people a month. I mean, the raffia is very, very close together in terms of, and that's important. So when they're rolling, you don't really see a break in the piece itself.
Wait, I'm sorry. Sorry. We have just time for one more question, so here, I'll get you the gentleman right next to you.
The mask. Yeah. So what I was interested in, and particularly doing the piece with MT and Arts for Transit, is that I wanted to and to know that Grand Central Station is this sort of central hub. It's the world goes through there, and so I wanted to sort of illustrate that each horse has its own identity. It's global. They move together as a global unit. So that was the reason why that choice was made.
So you made adjustments to
No, they've always the face mask was always sort of this arrange of textiles from around the world. And this piece is titled Blot, by the way.
Blot. Blot. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Alisa LaGamma. Thank you, the Met. Thank you, MTA Arts for Transit. And thank you, audience, for coming out.